Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was a rainy night in the middle of winter, and the McDonald's on the corner of 5th and Pine was nearly empty, save for a few scattered late-night patrons. The lights flickered every now and then, but no one seemed to pay much attention to it. The grease-slick air hung heavy with the smell of fries and burger patties, and the usual hum of the kitchen blended with the occasional voice over the intercom. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, but as soon as the clock struck midnight, something felt off. The night shift crew was used to the oddities of the job, the strange customer requests, the endless hours of serving greasy food to the odd mix of drunks, teenagers, and truckers. But tonight was different. The atmosphere felt oppressive, as if the walls themselves were closing in. No one said anything, but every now and then, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. They all noticed it, the man who had been sitting in the corner booth for nearly 2 hours, barely touching his food. His eyes were fixed, unblinking, on the employees behind the counter. His posture was strange, too stiff, as if he was almost in a trance. At first, they tried to ignore him. But then, it happened. The lights flickered again, this time more violently, and a loud bang echoed from the kitchen. The fryers seemed to short out, making a hissing sound as if something was burning inside them. One of the workers, Jessie, hurried over to check, but when she opened the fryer door, there was nothing inside except smoke. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been standing right behind her, watching. Then, one of the young cooks, Carlos, began to act strange. He had been working there for years and was usually the life of the shift, but tonight, his face had gone pale. His movements were jerky, like he wasn't quite in control of them. He started muttering something under his breath, something about the man in the darkness. His words were nonsensical, but there was something in his tone that made the others uneasy. "Did you see him?" Carlos asked, his voice trembling. Jessie and the others turned toward the corner booth, but the man wasn't there anymore. His table was empty. The only trace left of him was a cold, greasy cup of coffee and a faint, sour smell that lingered in the air. The door opened again, and the bell jingled. A new customer, but this one, unlike any other, walked in with a strange, deliberate slowness. He was dressed in a long, dark coat, despite the warm indoor temperature, and his face was obscured by a hood that shadowed his features. He didn't approach the counter. Instead, he stood still by the door, as if waiting for something. For what? No one knew. The employees exchanged confused glances. What was going on? Why were there no sounds outside, no traffic, no passing cars? They realized all at once that the world outside had gone eerily still. Then Carlos screamed. The others rushed over, but when they found him, he was standing at the fryer station, shaking uncontrollably, his eyes wide with terror. His hands were covered in blackened grease, and a dark stain seemed to be seeping out of his mouth, like something had been forced down his throat. The lights flickered again, and the man in the hooded coat stepped closer to the counter, his eyes now visible, bright, white, empty. He was smiling, but it wasn't a smile of joy. It was something darker, a grin that seemed to stretch far too wide. Just as Jessie turned to call for help, the power went out. For a few seconds, the restaurant was pitch black. The hum of the machines stopped, and an unsettling silence filled the air. The smell of burning oil still lingered, thick and suffocating. Jessie felt a hand grip her wrist from behind, pulling her back, and when she turned, the man was standing right there in front of her, his face now inches from hers. His breath was foul, like decayed flesh, and his words were a low hiss. "Leave before it's too late," he whispered, his voice like something out of a nightmare. Suddenly the lights came back on, and the man was gone. Just gone, like he had never been there at all. But the damage was done. Carlos had collapsed, and the kitchen was a disaster. The fryers were destroyed, the grill charred beyond recognition, and a strange foul residue coated everything. But there was no sign of the hooded man anywhere. The shift ended in chaos. Jessie and the others rushed to lock up, but something lingered in the air, an oppressive sense of dread. They didn't speak about it afterward, but none of them returned to that McDonald's again. Weeks later, the entire restaurant was closed down. The owner claimed it was due to maintenance issues, but no one really knew the truth. Some say the man in the corner booth still haunts that McDonald's, a figure that appears when the night is darkest, waiting for the next soul to stumble into his grasp. Others claim they've seen him in the reflection of the windows, just standing there, waiting. No one who worked there ever went back. No one dared to, and the lights still flicker when it rains.
Story number 2.
It was supposed to be a temporary gig, just a way for Kyle to make some money before heading off to college. He took the night shift at a 24-hour McDonald's just off the interstate, buried in a forgotten part of town that always seemed half asleep. The store itself felt old, like it had been stuck in the late 90s. Yellow tiles, flickering fluorescent lights, and an outdated play area that was always empty, even during the day. The first few nights were uneventful, boring mostly. A few truckers passing through, some weirdos. One woman who came in every night and ordered the same thing but never ate it, just sat at the window, staring out into the dark like she was waiting for someone. Kyle stopped asking questions after the third night. But on his fifth night, the camera started acting up. The feed from the drive-through camera would flicker between static and a black and white image of a car that wasn't there. It was an old sedan, something from the early 80s, headlights off, engine silent. Every time he went out to check, there was nothing there. But the camera said otherwise. The car just sat there, idling in a time loop that didn't match reality. He told his manager, but the guy just waved it off, said the cameras had been glitchy for years. You'll get used to it. But then things escalated. One night, around 3:17 a.m., he remembers the exact time because he looked at the clock just before it happened. He heard the play place intercom crackle to life. The system was ancient and never used, but that night it let out a burst of static followed by something that sounded like a child laughing, then whispering. Kyle thought it was a prank, maybe one of his coworkers messing with him, but he was the only one on shift that night, alone, kitchen locked, front door locked, drive-through only. He went into the play place to check it out. The lights were dim, but what really made him stop cold was that the ball pit, the one that hadn't been cleaned or used in years, was moving. Not a lot, just barely, like something was shifting beneath the surface. He stood there, holding his breath, watching. And then something surfaced. A hand, small, child-sized, pale with bruised fingers and grime caked under the nails. It reached up, gripped the edge of the pit, and then vanished just as quickly, like it had been pulled back under. Kyle didn't even scream. He just turned and left, walked right back to the counter and stood there, heart pounding, pretending it hadn't happened. The next night, he came back, not because he wanted to, but because he didn't have a choice. Money was tight. And besides, he told himself it had to be exhaustion, sleep deprivation, hallucinations. But that night, something new happened. A drive-through order came in at exactly 3:17 a.m. again. A soft, childlike voice. "Can I get a Happy Meal?" Kyle stared at the headset, not saying anything. "Hello?" The voice said again. He hesitantly replied, asking what kind of Happy Meal they wanted. "Doesn't matter," the voice said. "I just want to come inside." He froze. "I'm not allowed to open the doors," he muttered almost automatically. The voice went silent. Then, chillingly soft. "You already did." The headset cut out. He turned, and every door in the store, front entrance, kitchen exit, even the back freezer door was wide open. Cold wind blew in from all directions, and in that moment, every fryer and warmer shut down all at once. Total blackout. When the lights came back a second later, all the doors were closed again, locked, like nothing had happened. But sitting in the middle of the floor, right in front of the counter, was a single Happy Meal box. It was old. The design faded, the cardboard soggy. Kyle didn't want to touch it, but curiosity won. He leaned over and opened the flaps. Inside wasn't food, it was a photograph. A grainy picture of the play place from decades ago. Kids playing, sliding, laughing. But in the corner of the image, partially hidden in shadow, was a boy, alone, his face pale, his mouth open in a scream, eyes hollow. He looked exactly like Kyle. He quit the next day. He never went back. But sometimes when he's driving late at night, he swears he sees that same old McDonald's out the corner of his eye. Even if he states away, even if the one he worked at was torn down 2 years ago. And every once in a while, he'll find a Happy Meal box sitting on the hood of his car.
Story number 3.
Back in 2017, Claire was hired to work night security for a regional McDonald's distribution hub in the Midwest. This location wasn't a restaurant. It was a massive facility that processed, packaged, and shipped bulk food to McDonald's stores across the state. She worked alone in a little office with monitors showing security feeds from around the warehouse. The night shift was quiet, boring. Her job was to watch the cameras and make a few rounds on foot at 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. Most of the time, there was nothing to see but conveyor belts, pallets of frozen patties, and a lot of stainless steel. That changed one night in late October. At exactly 2:33 a.m., every camera in Section D, the deep freeze unit, cut to black. This wasn't uncommon during storms, but it wasn't raining. Everything else worked fine. Claire logged the outage and waited for the auto reboot. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The feeds remained dark. Annoyed, she grabbed her flashlight and walked down to check it out herself. The temperature in Section D hovered around -10 degrees Fahrenheit. She wore a thick company-issued coat as she pushed the heavy insulated door open. The instant she stepped inside, something felt wrong. The hum of the cooling units was off, more like a low growl than mechanical noise. Her breath clouded the air in front of her as she made her way past crates and shelving. That's when she noticed the footprints. Someone, barefoot by the look of it, had been walking through the frost-covered floor. The prints were smeared and chaotic, like the person had been running or stumbling. They disappeared behind one of the meat storage containers. Claire radioed it in, but got nothing but static. She moved slowly around the container, heart pounding. No one was there. Just more footprints leading in a circle and then straight up to a wall. The trail ended at a section of the wall that looked like any other, but when she knocked, it sounded hollow, like there was a hidden space behind it, a panel. She had never seen this before. It wasn't on the blueprints. She pushed on it. It clicked. A small door creaked open. Behind it was a short hallway, lined with rusted metal, and at the end of it, another door, this one much older. Wood rotted at the edges. The air coming through it wasn't cold anymore. It was warm, damp, and something moved behind it. She heard it, the dragging of something heavy across the floor. Claire slammed the panel shut and backed away. The cameras came back online at 2:51 a.m. When she reviewed the feed later, it didn't show her entering Section D. It didn't show the missing panel. It didn't show anything strange at all. In fact, the footage played on a loop, repeating the same 10 seconds over and over, like time had stopped. She reported it. Her manager brushed it off, said there were no hidden doors. No such hallway existed. When she tried to bring up the security footage, the file had been deleted. Gone. Even IT couldn't explain it. A week later, Claire quit, but she didn't stop digging. She started finding other people, former employees, janitors, tech workers, who'd worked in that same facility and had stories of their own. Stories about deliveries that arrived with no paperwork. Stories about shipments marked "Do Not Open" in red ink. One guy claimed he saw something crawling in the freezer on all fours, human-shaped but moving wrong, its limbs bending the wrong way. And then there was the rumor, something about Batch 047, a failed experiment, meat grown in a lab, designed to be cheaper, faster, untraceable. But it grew too fast, developed nerves, muscle, movement, something about it remembering what it had once been. They shut it down, sealed it behind a wall. But sometimes, late at night, in McDonald's kitchens across the country, workers say the meat hisses when it hits the grill. Not sizzles, hisses, like it's still alive, like it knows. And in certain locations, always between 2:30 and 2:51 a.m., the cameras cut out for exactly 18 minutes, every single time.
Story number 4.
It started with a flyer. Jake had just moved to a quiet suburb for a new job and spotted a crumpled paper in his mailbox. Grand reopening. McDonald's now open 24 hours. Come experience what's new. Thing is, Jake didn't remember there being a McDonald's in town. Still, one night after working late, too tired to cook, he drove out to check it out. The GPS didn't recognize the location at first, but after he punched in the address manually, it guided him down a stretch of road he hadn't noticed before, barely lit with no traffic and lined with old woods on either side. And then, out of nowhere, it appeared. A fully lit McDonald's, glowing unnaturally bright against the dark trees, with a sign that looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. The parking lot was empty, but the open 24 HRs sign buzzed cheerfully. He pulled in. Inside it was spotless, like too spotless. Not a speck of grease, not a fingerprint on the glass. Everything gleamed. Behind the counter was a girl with a stiff plastic smile. She didn't blink much. Her voice was overly cheerful, almost robotic. "Welcome to McDonald's. Would you like to try our special tonight?" Jake looked at the menu. It was weird, slightly off. The names were familiar but twisted. Mac Happy Slab, Smile Patty. Combo 6, Just Trust Us. He chuckled, thinking it was a gimmick. Just a cheeseburger and fries," he said. The girl nodded slowly. "Good choice, Jake." He froze. "Did I tell you my name?" The girl smiled wider. "It's on your card." But he hadn't given her anything yet. A little unsettled now, he took a seat by the window. Outside, he noticed something strange. The woods that had surrounded the parking lot before were gone. Just pitch black nothingness now. Like the McDonald's was floating in the void. The food arrived. It looked normal enough. Burger, fries, drink. But the smell was wrong. Sweet, like rotting fruit. And the fries, too soft. When he bit into one, it made a faint crunch, like something with a shell had been under the coating. He stood up, uneased, and went to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. It was like it was sealed shut. He tried the emergency exit by the bathrooms. Locked. No staff in sight. No back door. Just the girl at the counter, still smiling. "I'd sit back down if I were you," she said. Jake demanded to know what was going on, but she only responded with, "The meal isn't finished yet." The lights above him dimmed. A slow hum filled the air, not from the vents or the machines, but from somewhere deeper. Like the building itself was breathing. That's when he saw it. The walls of the restaurant had changed. Behind the posters, the fake tile, something organic pulsed beneath. Veiny, wet, breathing. And the counter girl was no longer behind the register. She was beside him, but not walking. She was gliding, her legs unmoving as she hovered across the floor, face frozen in a grotesque grin, teeth far too many, far too long. "You should have finished your combo, Jake," she whispered, eyes now empty white pits. "We made it just for you." The room collapsed inward. He blacked out. Jake woke up in his car, engine off, headlights dead. Parked on the side of a road he didn't recognize. No McDonald's in sight, just endless woods. He reported it. Cops found nothing, no building, no sign there had ever been one. But ever since that night, his food tastes wrong. Everything has a faint chemical sweetness. He avoids fast food now, but it doesn't help. Some nights he wakes up with grease on his hands, ketchup under his fingernails, and no memory of how it got there. And every month, like clockwork, another crumpled flyer appears in his mailbox. "McDonald's, we miss you, come back soon."
Story number 5.
There's a McDonald's in a small southern town that the locals won't go near after dark. It's not because of the food. It's not the staff. It's because of the mirror in the bathroom. Everyone who's lived in that town long enough knows the story. They say it started in 2004. A teenage girl named Amber worked there part-time after school. Friendly, quiet, always stayed late to clean up. One night, during a closing shift, she went into the women's restroom and never came out. The cameras caught her walking in. That was it. The footage showed her entering the restroom at 11:17 p.m. Then nothing. No exit. No one else went in after her. The closing manager knocked and knocked. Eventually, they had to call the police and break down the door. She was gone. No sign of struggle, no blood. Her cleaning cart still in the middle of the room. And the weirdest part? Her name tag was found stuck to the bathroom mirror, like it had been pressed into the glass and left behind. They searched for weeks. News coverage, missing posters, search dogs combing the woods nearby. Nothing. She just vanished. The restaurant stayed open, but something shifted. Employees started refusing to use the women's restroom after dark. Customers would come out pale, shaken. One little girl came out crying, swearing she'd seen the lady in the mirror waving at her. But when she turned around, there was no one there. The store replaced the mirror. Twice. But it didn't stop. It always started the same way. You'd go in, flip the light on, and see yourself in the mirror, just like normal. But if you stayed too long or looked too hard, your reflection would lag. Just for a second. Blink when you didn't. Tilt its head when you didn't move. The story spread. One employee swore he saw someone standing behind him in the reflection. A girl, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face. But when he turned around, The stall doors were all wide open. No one was there. Another woman claimed her reflection smiled at her, even though her own face was frozen in shock. When she stumbled out of the bathroom, she had a smear of condensation on her back, like a cold hand had touched her. Then came the whispering. Multiple reports. People said they heard a voice coming from behind the mirror. Faint, muffled, like someone trapped on the other side. It always said the same thing. Let me out. Some people started to believe that Amber never left the restaurant at all, that somehow she was still in that mirror. Not metaphorically, literally, as if something reached through the glass and pulled her in. The mirror's been replaced 5 times since 2004. It doesn't matter. The new glass fogs up for no reason. Handprints appear from the inside. Sometimes, very faintly, people see a face behind their own. Pale, blurry, wide-eyed, watching. Last year, a TikTok dare went viral. Kids trying to stay in the McDonald's bathroom for 3 minutes at midnight and stare into the mirror. One girl live streamed it. She stared, nervous, whispering jokes to her followers. But around the 2-minute mark, she stopped laughing. Her reflection didn't. It kept smiling. When she finally turned to run, the screen cut out. Static. The video was deleted hours later. Her account wiped clean. She was found in her bedroom the next day, asleep but unresponsive, eyes open, unblinking. She hasn't spoken since. Now, there's a note taped on the women's restroom door after 6 p.m. Closed for maintenance. But the locals know the truth. And if you ever stop by that McDonald's, take a look in the mirror, just not for too long. Because if you stay too long, your reflection might not give you back.
Story number 6.
It wasn't always like this. Jason had worked the late shift at McDonald's for over a year. He was used to the late night crowd, the drunks, the truckers, the college kids stumbling in after a night of partying. The shift had its quirks, but overall, it was just another paycheck. Nothing out of the ordinary. That was until that night. It had been a slow evening. Jason was working the drive-through window, staring blankly at the dark street outside when he noticed something strange. A car. A very old car, barely running, with the headlights dimming and flickering. It slowly rolled into the parking lot, stopping right by the drive-through lane. But there was no one in the car, no driver, no passengers. Jason froze, unsure if it was just his tired mind playing tricks on him. He walked out cautiously, his heart picking up speed. The car wasn't parked. It was in neutral, gently rocking back and forth as if someone had just gotten out, but there was no one around. His pulse quickened and he glanced at the time. 3:13 a.m. Hello? He called out into the night, but there was no answer. He stepped up to the driver's side door, hesitated, and then opened it. Empty. The interior was covered in dust, with layers of grime and dirt. The seats were torn, the steering wheel covered in an almost sticky substance like old syrup or something worse. But the strangest thing? On the dashboard was an old McDonald's receipt, still fresh as though it had just been printed, the date and time stamp for earlier that evening. Jason's eyes darted to the back seat. Nothing. Then, a sudden feeling of unease crawled up his spine. Something was wrong. He didn't know what, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him from the dark. He pulled the receipt from the dashboard and tucked it in his pocket. The car seemed to groan under its own weight, but the rocking stopped as soon as he shut the door. Jason rushed back inside the restaurant, locking the door behind him and setting the alarm. That's when the lights flickered. He chalked it up to a faulty circuit, but when the lights came back on, something was different. The entire restaurant had changed. The colors of the walls were slightly off. The tables seemed more worn. The music in the background was an old, distorted version of something familiar. The drive-through microphone buzzed to life. "Can I take your order?" A voice crackled from the speaker. It sounded familiar but wrong. Too familiar. Jason approached cautiously, but before he could say anything, the voice continued. "Why did you leave me?" I was still hungry. His heart skipped a beat. The car, the receipt. He knew something wasn't right. He took a step back, his mind racing. He thought about calling his manager, but something told him it was too late. The voice on the intercom spoke again, quieter this time. "I'm still hungry, Jason." The temperature in the restaurant dropped. Jason felt an ice-cold chill run down his spine. He turned toward the back of the store, but when he glanced back at the counter, something was standing there. A figure, tall, thin, dressed in ragged clothes. A man, or at least something that resembled a man. His face was hidden beneath a black hood, but Jason could see the outline of his hands, long, twisted fingers that seemed to stretch unnaturally far. The fingers twitched, and a wet noise filled the air, like something was slithering across the floor. Jason bolted toward the back door, but when he reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. The door was stuck, locked from the inside. The figure took a step forward, its movements jerky, like it was trying to stand upright but couldn't. A faint sound, almost like a low growl, came from under the hood. Suddenly, the lights flickered again. The sound of the drive-through speaker crackled to life, this time much louder, the voice distorted and guttural. "I'm starving." And then the figure moved. It wasn't walking. It was dragging itself across the floor, its hands and feet scraping against the tiles, leaving streaks of dark, sticky substance behind. It reached the counter, and when it looked up at Jason, the hood fell back, revealing a face that wasn't quite a face, just a featureless void, blacker than the darkest night, swirling with something that Jason couldn't describe. The voice returned, distorted and unnatural. "You took my food, Jason. Now it's my turn to take you." With a sickening thud, the thing leaped forward, but before Jason could react, the doors burst open. His manager, standing in the threshold, confused and frantic, saw the chaos. But when the manager stepped in, he stopped. The figure paused, as if sensing the presence of someone else. Slowly, it crawled backward into the shadows, and just like that, the restaurant returned to normal. The lights came back on. The air warmed. The music returned to its usual tune. Jason's manager asked what had happened. All Jason could do was stare, wide-eyed, at the spot where the creature had been. The receipt in his pocket was still there, but when he pulled it out, it was blank. There was no record of the car, no record of anything, no sign of the creature. Jason quit the next day, and the strange thing? When the new crew came in for the next shift, no one ever mentioned the weird car or the voice in the speaker. It was like it had never happened. But Jason knew better. He knew that whatever had been hungry that night, it was still out there, waiting. And no matter how far he ran, it would always find its way back, even if he never saw it again. And sometimes, on nights when the wind howls just right, Jason swears he hears the faintest whisper over the static of a drive-through speaker. "I'm still hungry, Jason."